Hi everyone, and welcome back to Matthew Whisters. Today we're going to be talking about mean, median, and standard deviation in Algebra 2. To start off, let's talk about the definitions. Mean is the average value of a data set, and you can represent it by this symbol right here in the calculator. The way you can calculate the mean is by either adding the maximum and minimum and dividing it by 2, or you can do the total sum of values and divide it by the number of values. The median is the exact middle of a data set. So the way you can do this is that you can order it from least to greatest value and then just find the exact middle point. Let's say you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can take the maximum and minimum value, which is 1 and 5, and you add them, you get 6, and you divide it by 2, and you get 3. Now, you can also do this easily. If you have easy numbers like this, you can cross them out from one side to another. So 1, 5, 2, and 4. Then your middle is exactly 3. And last but not least, another way you can do it is you can add all the values. So if you do 1 plus 2, which is 3, 3 plus 3, which is plus 4, which is 10, and then 10 plus 5, which is 15, and then you divide it by 5, you get 3. So all in all, 3 would be your median. Then the standard deviation is the average distance a data value is away from the mean. And you can represent it in the calculator with this symbol right here. So now let's talk about what standard deviation looks like. Well, we can see this in something called a bell curve, also known as normal distribution, where the data values, right, they're evened out, they're dispersed, they're clustered around the mean. And the mean is going to be in the center, which is center here. Now, there is a rule that you need to remember. Well, not always remember, because in the regions you do see the numbers, right? But you should still keep it in mind. The 68, 95, and 99.7% rule. What this means is that 68% of the data value falls under 1 standard deviation, 95% of the data falls under 2 standard deviations, and 99.7% of the value falls under 3 standard deviations. Now, the way that we can see this, right, is here we have 0 going to 1 and 0 going to -1. This represents 1 standard deviation as a whole, and within that range falls 68%. Now, the reason why it's +1 and -1 is because we're going left or right. If we're going to the left, it's negative, and if we're going to the right, it's positive. Now, the most common standard deviation that we're going to see is 95%. And we're going to see that in something called the 95% confidence interval. And lastly, we have 99.7%. So if we go from 0 to either 3, either +3 or -3, it's gonna fall under 99.7%. So now let's do a practice problem. I already annotated it, but we're gonna read it again. 95% of students, which is 2 standard deviations according to our rule, at school weigh between 62 kilograms and 90 kilograms. And that's our range because it says between. Assuming this data is normally distributed, so a bell curve, what are the mean and standard deviation? So we're looking for mean, which we can represent as this, and standard deviation, which we can represent like this. So again, there are many ways to find the mean. So one way we can do this is if we do 62 plus 90, because that's our minimum and that's our maximum, and we divide it by 2, and we get 76. So 76 is our mean, and that's going to go in the center. Read carefully again. It says 2 standard deviations. So that doesn't mean that's going to be all the way here, because that's 3 standard deviations. It's actually going to be here, because we have 1 standard deviation and then 2 standard deviations. So please be careful. So we're going to have 62, which is our minimum, in the left corner, and 90 in our right corner, because 90 is our max. So now that we have this, right, it's asking for the standard deviation. So the information in the problem told us specifically about 2 standard deviations, but we want to solve for just the standard deviation, so 1 standard deviation. Now, if we look back at our definition, standard deviation is the average distance a data value is away from the mean. And again, average is exactly the same thing as mean. And it's saying a data value is from the mean. So in this case, our data value is 62 and our mean is 76. Now we have to find the average between these two to find what's here. Now there are many ways you can solve for this. I'm going to show you a few ways. So you can do 76 plus 62 and divide it by 2, and you're going to get 69. And that's going to fall right here in between. Now if you do the same thing for 76 and 90, you're going to get 83. Now that you have those values, we can easily see what the standard deviation is. Well, again, this is just one standard deviation, and this is two standard deviations. So if we calculate the distance between 69 and 76, that's going to be our standard deviation. Same thing if we calculate the distance from 76 and 83. So we can do 76. So we can do 76 minus 69, and we can also do 83 minus 76. And both of your answers are going to give you 7. Therefore, our standard deviation is 7. Now, another way you could have easily solved for this is when we're looking at our bell curve, we're focusing on the two standard deviations, right? So we're focusing from here to here. And those make up 4 little squares, or little rectangles, whatever you want to call them. They're sections. This is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 4. Now, what you could have done as well is you could have done 90 minus 62, which would have given you 28, representing the entire range here, right? The way that the entire data set is dispersed, which is 28, or the total distance, and then just divide it by 4, because we have our 4 sections. And that would have also given you 7. The reason being is because we're splitting it up again into section 1, section 2, section 3, section 4. These all, regardless of what it is, it's still a standard deviation away from the mean. So this would be our answer, our mean of 76 and our standard deviation of 7. In 2013, approximately 1.6 million students took the critical reading portion of the SAT exam. The mean score and the standard deviation were calculated to be 496 and 115 respectively. What interval reflects 95% of the critical reading scores? So the only information that really matters in this problem is the mean score being 496 and the standard deviation being 115 and 95%. So if you write this down, the mean 496 and standard deviation 115. And it's asking for 95%, which is 2 standard deviations. So now it's asking us to find what interval. Interval is basically our range. So the minimum and the maximum. Now, one way that you can find this without drawing anything is simply taking the mean and adding and subtracting 2 standard deviations from it. Because again, the standard deviation is the average distance a data value is away from the mean. So what you can do is take our mean, 496, add it to 2 standard deviations. So if one standard deviation is just 115, if we take 2 standard deviations, we're doubling it. So we do 2 times 115. And we do the same thing if we want to find the minimum. We do 496 minus twice the standard deviation. And if we calculate that, we're going to get 726 for our maximum and 266 for our minimum. And that's simply our range, from 266 to 726. Now, if you want to visualize it, if you're more of a visual person, I'm going to draw it for you. So here again, our mean was said to be 496. This is 1 standard deviation. This is 2 standard deviations, right? So if 1 standard deviation was 150, if we take 2, that's going to be here. So let's see if our values are correct. If we have 266 here and 726 here, let's see if this is true. Take our maximum, which is 726, and our minimum, which is 266, and do 726 plus 266 divided by 2. We're going to get 496, which is, in fact, our mean, proving it to be right. Now, another way you could have proven this is if you could have did 726 minus 266 divided by 4, and you would have gotten 115, which is your standard deviation. Therefore, our final answer for the interval that reflects 95% of the critical reading scores is 266 to 726.